Hello guys, and welcome back to my Eastern Entente playthrough of To End All Wars. This is crazy, guys. So, last episode, as you know, we went through our whole turn, yada yada. One of the moves I made was taking the army that had been sitting in Czernowitz in eastern Austria doing nothing this entire time and railing him forward to Stanislaw to regain control of the situation, because there was just a small amount of troops there. No big amount of troops by any means. But, remember how there was so many units up here near Lemberg? Well, just coincidentally, the Austrians decided to rail down a gigantic amount of them. Thankfully, this is one of my strongest army groups in the entire game. However, this is still a very close battle. Our commanders is actually one of my best commanders. Still a very close thing, and I think these guys have the advantage. Better than your leader, yeah, so it's still better than my leader, technically, despite looking pretty similar. Still better, ever so slightly, so I can't see what's happening here. All I know is I'm going up against a force that has equivalent artillery. 3 more, so 1.5 times my amount of cavalry, but I outnumber them not quite 2 to 1. But pretty well in terms of infantry. So the plan I'm going with for this battle, if it ends up mattering, is the envelop flank plan. Now, we haven't used this before. This is a strong flanks deployment. This plan tries to wrap around the enemy in a flanking maneuver in a C shape. It gives you increased frontage, so more of your units may participate in any round of the battle at the same time. It gives you increased range and assault attacks, so artillery fire and infantry charges, close combat melee. It reduces enemy firepower at range and their assault combat effectiveness as a result. And this doesn't really have necessarily any regular penalties. The penalty comes if the plan gets countered, which hopefully it doesn't, because this is what I'm betting it on, because this is a pretty even fight, as you can see, and I'm not going to be able to do a strong center deployment and hope to win because I don't overpower the enemy. I can't do that. That would be terrible, and they could likely counter that with a flanking maneuver of their own. I don't know exactly how they'd counter this, maybe with a harassing deployment, but hopefully they don't. So let's go to battle, and, oh god. Alright, well, once again, these battles always end up so short. Once again, a very short battle. Not a lot actually happening. We didn't even get to the point of being able to use those plans because they use a prepare to withdraw deployment. So I guess they were surprised that an entire Russian army of almost 200,000 men managed to show up as they just arrived, and they weren't entrenched by any means. And so they put up a prepare to withdraw deployment to try to escape. It looks like they got away successfully because we, again, did not get past round 1. We did come out of this the winners. We lost 0 artillery and they lost 6. Apparently we had the exact same amount of artillery. I don't know if it's the exact same types, but the exact same amount nonetheless. It looks like they had more powerful artillery than me. Oh, right, they have the next level of artillery. Right, my artillery is still underpowered compared to theirs. I forgot all about that. I lost 50 cavalry to their 319 losses. As we can see, we both had around 12,000, 11,000 cavalry, so it was pretty even there, despite it saying that they had more than me. They arrived with over 120,000 units, and I arrived with over 190,000. I lost 3,761 of my units here. They lost 5,227 of their infantry. I actually also lost 2 planes. These are spotting planes. I assume they've snuck some fighters in here. I can't see it here, but I assume they've snuck some fighters in here, which is how any of my planes got shot down. Only 2, not that big of a deal. And it looks like they've completely run away from the area. We're still besieging Stanislaw itself, so some of them may have gone into the city or into the depot, whereas the vast majority of them have just railed right out of there, run away back towards Lemberg. Let's go ahead and close that. And alright, so we took Stanislaw, so they just completely ran away from me. I have a militia unit, as I said last turn, running down to Stanislaw in order to hunker down in the area. Not that one militia unit could have ever stopped any of the troops that came over there, but slowed them down, surely. A lot of movement in and around Serbia. We had some pretty major fights here last turn. Huge fights. And there's plenty of Austrian movement going on around here. A lot of it without trains. They must be pushing their train limits to the max as well. And here comes probably the riskiest maneuver I've done this whole time. Our forces have pushed through the winter for 3 days at least, and then we got here, and then I guess we just stayed here waiting to attack until one of the final days of the turn, because that's a thing in this game. And Otto von Bello is holding his ground. He's certainly somewhat entrenched by now. Our cohesion is not looking very good here. But what does the AI suggest we do? A cavalry breakthrough. That's interesting. Breakthrough deployment, strong center. So this is unique. I haven't seen this before. What is this? Charge part of the enemy lines. Increase cavalry frontage and assault combat with big penalties to protect him from enemy range fire. Use this plan to shake in the enemy only if you have a lot of cavalry units, which we do. We have 8 cavalry units. 55 infantry, 19 artillery. They only have 5 artillery and 7 infantry. It's definitely a plan that could work. I'll go ahead and go by what he thinks we should do. We'll see how this goes. Alright, well that plan did not necessarily go according to plan, but we won, technically. Despite getting our asses beat. We lost 16,000 troops to them losing 10,000. We lost 1,700 cavalry and 30 guns. They didn't lose any of the kind, and they ended up retreating at the very least, as we can see. And we have taken Referral. So we took the position, but we lost troops, a decent amount of troops doing it, which was to be expected, I suppose, given the weather. But... oh, and another fight. Oh, God. What has happened? What has happened here? A Serbian defeat? Oh, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. A Serbian defeat, you guys. Over here. Where have they marched into? Right into Zvornik. Yeah. And it's funny that this is a defeat. It really is, because we only lost 13,000 troops, and they lost 28,000 troops. They lost over twice the troops we did. Cavalry and gun losses being insignificantly small, as you can see. This was just brute force, and it's crazy that this works, because we outnumber them. We outnumber them in every instance, and now the Turks have actually crossed the border. Thank God I sent my other troops here when I did. The Turks have crossed the border with a decent force, and apparently his commander is still better than mine. Oh, just oh so barely. What do you suggest we do? A full-on infantry assault? Well, let's take a look at this. They have 12 guns, we have 19. They have 4 cavalry, we have 12. We have 66. Yeah, alright, that's a pretty good idea. That's a pretty good idea. Let's go ahead and hopefully kick some Turkish ass. Not as much ass kicking as I would like, but we've definitely kicked some ass here. Only 1 round of combat. 4,510 losses on our side. We had over 200,000 troops. This might be my strongest army then. They brought 142,000 units, lost 7,175 of them. I lost 406 cavalry. They lost 185. Overall, I'd say that's a win for me. I mean, the game says so too. I'd say that Serbian fight was a win for me, except we probably had to retreat from it, is probably why it was not a victory. No encounters going on in Western Poland currently, thankfully. Von Hindenburg's on the run. A lot of units that have been causing me troubles are on the run. Oh my god, gigantic force! Gigantic force is amassing in northeastern Austria. It's crazy. And then Rawa Ruska seems to just have emptied out. Like, what the hell? And the results are finished. Alright, so the Centrals, I think, had a pretty decent turn there on maybe both fronts. I mean, we kicked their asses most of the times. Not by the ratios I'd like, but they had a pretty aggressive turn, that's for sure. The Western Entente has gone down some morale. The Central Powers have actually stayed still in their morale, so they must have gained a morale point from a battle. I didn't lose any morale points from any battles, so I don't think they got any from me. I think they won a good battle against the Western Entente. My total VP gain has gone down by like 1. The losses are really stacking up on both sides, as you can see. We are definitely past the 900,000 mark here, as my losses have grown past 300,000 with some very crazy fighting this past turn. The Central's losses continue to stack up. But I've unlocked my first decision finally. Polivanov, I guess. Anyway, this guy, apparently a rare exception under Tsarist Russia. He proved to be a very competent official as Minister of War in 1915. After assuming the office, great strides were made in re-equipping the Russian army and improving its communications and supply systems. However, his fall came quickly as the hand of Tsarina Alexandra and her advisor Rasputin. He's available after April 1st, 1915. The effects are, we gain a one-time bonus of 8 EP, it costs 5 EP just to do this, so we get 3, I guess. 200 conscripts we don't spend any conscripts, we get 200 war supply, and we get 200 railroad pool, which I don't know if that's just for one turn, or just like a boost, probably just for one turn. But we pay, essentially for this, 250 state funds, and 100 victory points. So that's where a lot of my money's going. That's where 100 victory points are going. That war supply, we don't really need it, but it would be certainly handy. Railroad pool is always handy for moving supply. Even if it's just for one turn, it's very useful for moving large armies around. And the war supply, the conscripts, all these things, these are just important. 3 EP doesn't make that much of a difference, but hey, it's still something. Looking around the world, I don't really know where anything exciting would have happened. It's not a lot happening here. Africa's pretty dead fucking silent as well. This is still silent. I don't know where the forces that were besieging Basra went, but they're not besieging anything. The sieges at Selt Ur Ber and Kumkale are both proceeding. Nothing really exciting happening, but of course, I'm leaving all my units in the defensive over at Kars over here, the fortress of Kars, where the Ottomans have gone on the offensive. At a good time for me, anyway. Looks like their command is pretty shitty. They've really overstacked this stack and are going with a 20% penalty, but the AI in Rise of Prussia did that too. That being said, I mean, they're still doing pretty well. The ratio they got wasn't the worst. Looks like the total entrenchment level has actually gone up. Is that something I can, read anywhere? I don't think so. But at some point, the entrenchment level has gone up again to 3. We have a mixture of entrenchment levels here. A lot of our forces are in 1 entrenchment level. Yeah, almost all of them. The ones actually behind the walls are in 2 and 3, respectively. But everyone outside that's taken part in this battle is in entrenchment level 1. Not the greatest, but so long as we're in the defensive and we have an entrenchment level, that will help us deal with this nonetheless. Moving over. Here, I'm really not sure what to do. There's enemies all fucking over the place right now. There's a very weak core over here. It just looks like it's 1 division, at least from what I can see. Nothing too bad. So I'm going to move one of my weaker cores over here to kind of stand guard outside this rail area, while the rest of them hold position over at Stanislaw and stare down a gigantic amount of Austrian might. Probably some German stuff in here too. I've been seeing German stuff coming in and out of Austria like crazy. But they're also just, there's too much for these commanders to handle, I noticed over here as well. I can see with this one, I'm sure the same is the case with this one. These stacks are too big. They're too big. This one too. These are all too large of stacks. So I'm going to stand here and kind of invite them to attack me again or leave. You got to do one. You're either going to attack me or you're leaving. You're not just going to sit here this whole time and stare at me. And if you are, I mean, that's stupid because you could be somewhere else. You outnumber me, you outgun me. You got to use that. Over in northeastern Austria, we are going to continue to just hold our ground here. Rawa Ruska just finally is no longer under attack, but as we've seen with all their railways around here, things change in an instant. And with how many troops they have here, and I'm sure they're dug in, I'm not exactly too confident in my ability with my forces at hand to just go charging into them in this army. Because this is just overstacked. This is so many units. One of my army groups would not really be able to handle that in an offensive situation necessarily. I mean, it wouldn't get wiped out if things went badly. I just don't want to risk it, because we also have to march there, which would take away from our cohesion. You saw what marching for 3 days in the snow to Velau did to us. Look at our cohesion after this battle. It's terrible. And we still managed to lose 6,000 more than they lost. It was a risky maneuver that I did here. We definitely lost more than we gained up in Velau by doing something like that, and something like that could happen again. The only reason I chose to do it over here is because I think there's something to be gained by it. We've now cut off Memel. We've even driven their forces apart by the looks of it. Like, some of them went down southwest, some of them went to Memel. And now all these forces seem stuck in Memel, meaning they're going to have to come back through us. And if we gain full control of this area, they're going to have to walk, because they won't be able to take the railway. Or they're going to have to go north into our other forces, which in just one day will be unified where they're supposed to be, which will take these two locations without issue, unless this force crosses the river and attacks, which I'd be really fucking surprised if they did. I doubt they will. Ideally, nothing else happens over here till we secure this. I group everyone together, and then we just cross the river in one big-ass attack, and we just take Memel, and we fuck up all these units, maybe scare them into Velau, I don't know. That's the goal. The units at Velau, though, are going to rest. I'm not going on the offensive with them for the time being. Operations up here are proceeding as I want them, really. I'm happy with the way they are going. In Poland, we're going to continue to hold position. There's some Austrians over here, not a large amount, but von Hindenburg is still down here. They're still in the area. They may have moved one tile away, but they're still in the area. So even though the weather's better, I just kind of want to hold my ground for the time being. We don't necessarily have what we need over here anyway to say, go try to take on Thorn. This is an army with like 3 army corps attached, and these are certainly not my strongest forces by any means. So I don't think unless I combine these forces, in which case figuring out how to separate them after would be funny. Unless I combine these forces, I don't think we're going to be able to take Thorn. And combining these forces means giving up the defense of Western Poland. And Western Poland, as I see now, it's open. It's open to enemy attack. The Germans are not just sticking on one side. They're trying to hit us at every opportunity they can. The AI is a short-term thinker. And all it sees is, hey, there's an opening here. Let me go get that opening. And I have 3 armies in Poland right now, and I'm working to kind of close the gap that the Germans opened down here without crossing into Germany proper. Ideally, we'd be able to split one of these armies in 2 to defend Lodz and Kolo. Maybe if one of these groups leaves us, we can do that. Right now, that's still kind of a combat situation, though, so I'm not going to turn this into a proper, like half and half defensive force just yet to free up the other army group, because right now I think one of these army groups, well, both of them are needed for the time being. Maybe next turn that'll change. They seem to be running away, going somewhere else, and if they do, thank God. I'll probably leave this army here and send this army elsewhere to go start some shit. And over here, the operations are proceeding pretty much as planned. This is going to take a few turns to actually capture these 2 locations. But for supply reasons, I'd like to have them captured. It's fine because our cohesion in our main force is still coming back to us. It's not fully returned yet. But eventually I'll probably push down here. And then I'd probably cross the river. I might cross the river here, quite frankly. But for now, I just want to secure the surroundings. And that's basically everything I'm doing. Let's go over here. I'm doing grant concessions on Serbia now. They're at 3% rebels. Get them back up to 100. It will be 11 turns until I can do this again here in Russia. And that 11 turns would be enough to get the rebels up to 14%. So as you see, it's just not going to keep up whatsoever. Hopefully there's some events that help us, or hopefully the enemies just, lose it much faster than we do. They're not granting concessions. Oh, they are, and they have in Austria. They seem to wait for it to get bad enough to justify doing it. Like in France and Austria, just how bad it is. Let's take a peek over at Romania. It's still kind of half and half, but I'm sure it's slowly going towards Central Powers. It seems kind of stagnant for now, which is better than nothing. Let's take a look at Bulgaria. Is at 96%. So at the rate which I believe it would be going, we're at 3 turns away. Last turn I said 4 turns away. So it seems to still be following that timeline. However, the Greek timeline seems to be going faster, because now it's 3 turns for Greece. If Greece and Bulgaria join the war at the same time, that's handy, because we gain a nation to face off against this new enemy. And again, hopefully they join us and not the Western Entente, but I don't know. We're going to find out together in like 3 turns, because I don't know how this is going to go. And the Entente has been working on Saudi Arabia with very little success. Central Powers has been working on Holland, the Netherlands with very little success. Italy is at 90%, so they've gone up towards the Entente a little bit. We're getting there. It'll be another 10 fucking turns at this rate, because the Central Powers are trying to fuck with it, but likely less than 10 turns from now, Italy will have joined us. Maybe 5 to 8 turns, let's say. So I believe it will be past their historical join date, but it should still be within 1915, which is good because we need all the fucking help we can get in Europe. As you see, all my research is now level 2 except tanks. Nobody has tanks yet. I'm spending my money this turn, my remaining money, on my artillery research. We are going to get artillery research up 40%, hopefully. Question mark, I guess. I don't know. It's funny, I've done the research for these two, but they've only gone up 10%. In 40 points. I guess you need more points for a percentage in the higher tiers. That could make sense. In which case, maybe it did carry over and I just didn't know it. Either way, here we are now. I'm spending the money on the research. We're going to get some artillery. All I'll have left is chemical warfare. I checked, nowhere good to use chemical warfare. So, that's a bust. But with that being the whole world situation and everything we can really do right now, let's go ahead and hit next turn. And we're going to actually get through another turn this turn. It's amazing. We never do that. The first battle that will be happening for this turn is on day 1. Would you look at it? It's the Turkish leader, or his general. It's not their leader. What am I talking about? Why do I keep calling them his leader? But he's back with less power this time. Or did he have this little power before? I don't know, but you know, here we go. 12 guns to R19, 4 cap to R12, 28 infantry to R66. We outnumber this guy like crazy. So I'm just going to go with that infantry assault again, because that's where our strength really lies. And just a 1-round battle again with a strong center deployment on both sides. It's crazy how short these battles end up being, yet how deadly. We lost 8,661, so definitely more losses than the previous turn. Out of our 216,720 infantry. He still had about 140k. He lost 21,500. That's way more losses. Last time it was like 3,500 versus like 7,500. So we may have lost double, a little more than double what we lost, but he lost triple what he lost the previous turn. So that's awesome. We lost 402 cavalry to their 1,000, seeing as we doubled their numbers. That's fine. Only place we really lost out was guns. 18 guns lost, 6 guns lost on the other side. We outnumbered them in guns, so that's fine. We always do badly with guns, but it's probably because of my very aggressive tactics. Either way, that battle went great. Fucking 3-1 KDR there or whatever. Awesome. Lots of movements happening. Looks like von Hindenburg has bowed out, which will end up freeing up some of my units that I could put to another task. What task? I don't know. What a task. It will be a task, at the very least. And so we have a new turn. Now, this is an interesting turn in a couple ways, but let's just look at the war situation as it stands. The French front, pretty much untouched. Switzerland doesn't look too different, except I do believe they are gaining control of some of their countrysides again, so that's always a good sign. I'd love to see the Western Entente start pushing somewhere, based on how many Germans we just keep seeing show up. But so far, no such luck. Take a look at the Ottomans. Still under siege at these 2 locations. I don't really see them going anywhere. I'll say this every turn until I see them go away. No activity where this siege was happening. Africa still has no activity. Asia. The siege for this Chinese colony belonging to Germany actually stopped. The Japanese backed off. What does that mean? You suffer a big loss over there or something? And then going over here, Serbians, like I've said, I've put... Wow. What? What the fuck? Okay. Well, so it turns out that there's 2 different Entente alignments, and my concessions that I granted Serbia gave them 3% Eastern Entente alignment. Apparently they had Western Entente alignment, and the 3% Eastern Entente alignment came out of their Western Entente alignment instead of the rebels. So I guess that sounds like a bug, but I feel like that's something only the Eastern Entente would ever encounter, because diplomacy tends to be in the ballpark of the Western Entente. Well, I guess I just won't grant any more concessions to Serbia because it's a fucking waste. How many points did I fucking waste then? I wasted 50 victory points. Oh well. Thanks, game, for that. Good job, developers. You really did good on that one. Alright. What the fuck, dude? That's so fucked up. Anyway, Italy is moving closer towards joining the Entente. They are 4 or 5 turns away from joining, which is a big change, considering I just said like 10 turns last time. Bulgaria and Greece are both 2 turns away from joining their respective sides, so that's a pretty big deal. Judging by the fact that it is Western Entente alignment, that there is actually a color coding, I'm just going to go ahead and assume Greece will join the Western Entente and nobody ever joins the Eastern Entente, and the Eastern Entente is basically just destined to be Russia, and I don't know why they're granted Serbia when they give Serbia Western Entente alignment. That's so annoying. I just noticed that, and it's so fucking annoying. For whatever reason, our research didn't go through. I clicked it again, I selected it again, so we're going to try to get artillery research going through again. I've done some recruitment, mainly of militias, to cover our flanks, so I'm going on some offensives here. Over here in Western Poland, I am splitting up the 2 groups finally. The group defending Kolo is currently going to defend both of them. They're sending 2 of their units, about half their power, down to Lodz. The other half will remain at Kolo. They'll defend each other. And the army group at Lodz is going to do something a little different. The army group at Lodz is going to push forward into Kalis, where there are currently some units. We likely won't catch them, but I want to take control of it, so I control this railway completely. And then I'm probably going to move into Ostrau and try to cut off this area, if possible. That's my current goal, to just kind of cut off the railway leading east to Western Poland, if I can. That's my goal. Over in southern Poland, I am going to reunify this army corps together since I've gained majority control, at least, of these 2 countrysides. They'll both arrive there within the turn, and then they'll have the rest of the turn to recuperate. And then from there, we'll figure out what I'm going to do with this army group. I want to push down into Austria, but it's pretty dangerous right now. I'm glad I stayed on the defensive at Rawa-Ruska, because a lot of Austrians showed up and are on the doorstep of, meaning they've abandoned over here. They could show up at a moment's notice, I'm sure. So what I'm going to do is, instead of pushing southwest into Zlakzau, I'm going to push southeast into Tamopol with everyone except this one deactivated corps, because I don't want this one deactivated corps to ruin anything, essentially, because it would take them longer to get there. I mean, I could just have them start marching, just not in sync. I don't think I'm moving any of these guys in sync. It'll take them maybe the whole turn, maybe longer to get there. Shrug, I don't know. When it says 15 days, it's kind of like half and half whether they get there quite on time. I'll move them and I'll see. The goal is to take Tarnopol. Oh, it's Tarnopol. God, that text is so tiny. The goal is to arrive in Tarnopol and then hopefully take it. And then once we secure this area, we can consider moving southeast to kind of take this other city down here, or moving west towards Lemberg. Finally start pushing some kind of an offensive while the snow's gone, you know? Over in Stanislaw, I'm just thinking of staying put because they still have so many troops over here staring us down, even in the region with us. So I just kind of want to hold them there and stop them from fucking me up. Up in Eastern Prussia, the 2 Finnish units have finished, get it, securing Retzau and are going to take the train down to Dorbiani to meet up with my HQ leader and his accompanying army corps filled with cavalry, and we are going to maybe chase out this infantry division. I don't think so. I'm not trying to really hunt him down. I assume he'll just try to run anyway, and once we get everyone regrouped and recovered, because my HQ and army group here could use some more cohesion, we're going to probably cross the river into Memel, as risky as that might be, because they look like they're all kinds of fucked up over here, like no cohesion, no supplies, lowering health from what I can see anyway. And they have very few units there to begin with, so I want to chase them out as soon as possible. And then down over in Turkey, we have an interesting situation. I'm redeploying these recon planes because I want to get them to a main army instead of a corps. They were in an army corps here. I'm moving one of the corps. The railroad here is cut, so I have one corps trying to repair the railroad. I have another corps trying to move west. It's going to take 7 days to get here because they moved one of their units or it retreated over here. So I kind of want to intercept it. I'll target it so we chase it. So long as it stays generally, you know what, I won't target it. No, just move over here so you're still in range. As long as we stay in range, it'll be fine and we won't be weakening ourselves because we should assist each other from the distance anyway. So it shouldn't be so bad. And then all that's really left to do is look at the total situation this turn. Central Powers have lost morale. Western Entente has gained morale. They're kind of playing neck and neck here. The Western Entente is catching up to the Central Powers in their total morale, so I guess the Western Entente had a good turn. And we are at 96, so we're still ahead of both of them, but of course it is still going down 1 every single turn, and that is going to start to catch up with us. Total losses, we've barely gone up in our total losses comparatively, but the Central Powers are at 1,268,000 total losses. The Western Entente at about 783,000 total losses. We are about 326,000. So our combined losses go over 1 million for sure now, but we still have less losses. And really, I don't know what to say about the war. I don't know what to say about how it's going. I don't know whether or not to proclaim that I'm winning. I feel outnumbered and fucked on every front. I feel like the game is fucking with me with how this concession granting went. I mean, just look. I have the least victory points of everyone already. That is 50 important victory points that I just lost that are now gone. And that sucks. But oh well, I'll eat that 50 victory points and call it a hard lesson learned. Whatever. And we'll just move on. But for now, we got a nice full episode, and next turn, hopefully all my many movements and offensives go to plan. Not that I have a lot of them, but I have some pretty key ones that could be met with a very large battle based on the prior observations of how this AI behaves. So let me know what you guys think. Are we winning? Are we doing well? Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.